The video that you are about to watch is an excerpt of the original. After my long efforts in dealing with YouTube's copyright management system, I had to give up. I haven't given up my projects though. And while we cannot publish the entire video here due to the imminent danger of having the channel closed down, you can still enjoy excerpts which we've carefully chosen in order to make this video meaningful, fun, and educational. If you want to watch the complete video, including the sound of the music from the original recording, as well as special edition videos which will never be published here on YouTube due to the same copyright issues, and the Beatles 150 series, as well as other series and courses, you're welcome to visit my Ko-fi or Patreon page. I hope you enjoy this video. Can't Buy Me Love. E minor, A minor, E minor, A minor, D minor, G. Hi everyone. Tonight, I need to stop saying tonight. Hi everyone. Next in the Beatles 150 series is number 25. We're still, I guess, in the beginning stages. 25 out of 150. But that's 1/6 of the way through this whole journey, and I feel like it's a bit of a milestone for me, numbers-wise. And the song is going to be Can't Buy Me Love. I have to look at my title here, that's why I'm looking away from the camera. Anyway, of course I have some things to read about it, so I'm going to dive straight in and see what there is to find out about it, and then we'll listen. The genre is rock pop. Seems like they're settling into this rock pop style. Of course, being the Beatles, that makes sense, right? With alleged advance orders in the states of 1,700,000 copies. Whew, that's quite a bit. The single, Can't Buy Me Love, You Can't Do That, passed the 1 million mark in sales in the US the day after it was released. In fact, the single had an international advance order of 2,100,000 copies. Those are big numbers. I sit here and I think, am I reading that properly? I think I am. 2,100,000 copies. Can't Buy Me Love made its debut on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 27 on March 28th, 1964, but then jumped directly to the number 1 spot the following week. This broke the record for the biggest leap into the top spot on the charts, being that no artist before that time had ever gone directly to number 1 from outside the top 20. This record remained intact for 38 years. Leave it to Beatles. Another record broken with Can't Buy Me Love was by being the 3rd consecutive number 1 single by the same artist, following I Want to Hold Your Hand and She Loves You. The dominance of the Beatles on the American pop music charts had reached such a fever pitch by the early months of 1964 that they broke a further record, this time by holding down the entire top 5 positions on the pop chart for the week of April 4th, 1964. The chart that week looked like this. 1. Can't Buy Me Love. 2. Twist and Shout. 3. She Loves You. 4. I Want to Hold Your Hand. 5. Please Please Me. This must be the height of Beatlemania. The following week on the Billboard chart, which was April 11th, 1964, another record was broken during the stay of Can't Buy Me Love in the number 1 spot. The Beatles occupied a total of 14 positions in the Hot 100 for that week. No artist broke this record for decades. I'm curious which artist broke it eventually. Might have to look that up. One thing we always did with records we bought, aside from checking out the title, was to check out the names in brackets underneath. Paul relates in his book, The Lyrics. Lieber and Stoller, Goffin and King, these were magic names to us. So, John and I looked at people like them and said, right, we could do that. And if we get hits, we'll get money. It may not buy us love, but it'll buy us a car. Sounds rather pragmatic, huh? In the book, many years from now, Paul continues, Can't Buy Me Love is my attempt to write a bluesy mode. Interesting. The idea behind it was that all these material possessions are all very well, but they won't buy me what I really want. It was a very hooky song. Kind of interesting that they're talking about Can't Buy Me Love at the same time putting out a piece of music. Can't buy me love. It'll buy us a car though. That's Paul completely. Maybe I had something to do with the chorus, but I don't know. I always considered it his song, Lennon said in 1980. And as a follow-up to their groundbreaking worldwide smash, I Want to Hold Your Hand, the Beatles proved with Can't Buy Me Love that they were not just another flash in the pan. They were here to stay. Well, well, well. The height of Beatlemania, it seems. Keep twist and shout, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, Please Please Me. I guess I've heard all of those by now. Can't Buy Me Love. I expect it to be kind of in the same style because it seems like all of this is happening around the same time period, and it's all catering towards their fan base, which are the young, in love, many girls. I'm sure there were some guys in there as well. So let's see what it sounds like. Can't buy me. Somehow made me think of Twist and Shout, although much cleaner, much, shall I say, better in its clarity. But it had that same sort of wild, abandoned feel to it. Interesting also the balance between the drums and the guitar. The guitar was barely audible, just ding, 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 ding. And the drums really drove the thing all the way through. It sounds kind of like they got into the studio and said, all right, I've got this cute little tune. Now, Ringo, just make a bunch of noise for me and let's see how it sounds. Worked pretty well, huh? But let's go back through and pull it apart a little bit. Although it is a fairly simple song, it probably won't take us very long, but it's worth digging in to notice what there is to find. Can't buy me. First thing I notice is there is no instrumental intro to this. It launches straight in without any preparation. I suppose they might have had something to give him the pitch before he launched into it. Maybe they just ran through it a moment before. But it's just the voice. Purely exposed in the first bar. And it's vibrant. And it immediately gives us also the syncopation element of the melody. Because this melody is pretty much perpetually syncopated all the way through the music. And it's great. Can't buy me. That is the introduction. It's a melodic introduction, and I think it was similar to the refrain, but that's what launches the whole thing. I'm looking at the chords here, and I'm noticing, well, we're in the key of C major. It's an interesting set of chords to start with for a piece of bluesy style music, because, well, we have an E minor chord here, goes to A minor, then we're back to E minor, back to A minor. Okay, we go to looks like a D minor. All these minor chords. We haven't hit anything like the tonic yet. Next we have the G. Okay, this G chord is kind of the dominant. And it's moving us towards this. Well, we end up with a A sharp, C. This is going to be our C chord. C chord with an added sixth. So finally we get something bluesy going on here. But remember, a 12-bar blues is your one chord repeated 1 1 1 1, and then you have the 4 chord, the 1 chord, the 5 chord, the 4 chords, and 1 chord. I mean, it's a consistent 1 4 5 pattern that's blues. And in this intro refrain, we get none of that. It doesn't give us the blues chord progression. And it's kind of ambiguous about the key, isn't it? But it's so vibrant, even though he's throwing out all these minor chords. I mean, can't buy me love. E minor, A minor, E minor, A minor, D minor, G. Finally, a C with A sharp or B flat thrown on top to launch us into the rest of into the verse, really. And the verse is where we finally run into the blues. Let's listen to it. There we settle into the blues progression. Look at it here. It's we have the C. We have another C. Oops, let's make sure this is writing. Yep. We have another C and another C. So we have our 4 Cs. Then we go to an F. That's our 4 chord. F. Back to C. C. Just looking through here quickly. There's a G. I love this launch. There's F, and then there's this bit of silence that just cuts off while the voice does all of its syncopated dancing around the melody. And then we are back to, here's another F. And here's a C. It's almost perfectly a classic 12-bar blues sequence. 4 C's, 2 F's, 2 C's, a G, F, F, C. And if we listen to the verse without the intro, without the refrain, then I'm able to fall into more of the blues mood because suddenly it feels more like that. I kind of like the way I don't care too much for money, and that is the moment, as if he's accentuating, I don't care too much for money. With the rest here and this rest in the voice on the downbeat. I don't care too much for money. And then we continue on. In spite of all this blues chord progression and the voice which is giving us our blues notes in the melody, we have the blues scale, which has some extra notes other than 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, which most of those show up in the voice. In spite of all of that, it has such a crisp, clean, straight feel. I know there's swing in it, rhythmically, dum da dum da dum da dum, but it's the way it's being presented rapidly, bar by bar by bar, that really throws us through and makes it snappy. It's not a down and slow, emotive, introspective, or pouring the whole soul out kind of blues. This is chipper. This is lively. This This gets us up and moving, but I don't care too much for money. And that's why it makes me think of Twist and Shout, because they're both such dynamic, energetic. They make us want to get up and dance and move. And, well, they're both kind of roughly in the same era, of course. Isn't it interesting the way the Beatles are drawing on these blues harmonies, and they're still giving this really youthful spirit quality to the music. And that's fun to see, and it's fun to hear and enjoy. And this is where, the first listen around, I first became aware of how powerful the drums were compared to the guitar. Because I hear this guitar doing these little chink, 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 little notes in there. They're so tiny and hidden behind the voice and the rollicking, tumbling drums, which have so much texture in them. And it's almost as if this guitar is another percussive element. It's as if Ringo said, I don't have that texture, that sound on my drums around me, so can you just give me a hand here and give a few little textural moments? Because as much as it is driven by the beat, as I'm listening to these drums, I'm noticing the incredible breadth of textural qualities that he's throwing out of this instrument. It's the youthful spirit. It's everybody's happy, everybody's dancing. Let's throw in a little shriek here. Let's just encourage the crowd to go wild a bit. At the same time, we're here, we're having fun. I don't care too much for money. Money can't buy me love. I'll buy you anything you want, just let's go off, have some fun. Little teenage shriek, scream. I've seen kids do that quite often, just out having fun, laughing, goofing off. And here it is, embedded in the music. Just at the moment when we feel like, okay, we're hearing verse, verse, verse. We've come back around and let's just spice it up. Let's keep it feeling fresh. How do we do that? By acting like kids. For money. That guitar solo, I would say it's cute. It falls into the same mood of chipper, cheery, playful, lighthearted, and kind of dancing on your feet. It sounds like he is just having a blast, really. I mean, it's the same rhythmic approach that the melody has. In fact, it kind of quotes the melody a little bit. But I love the way da-da-dum, bum, da-da-da-da-da-bum, and then this bum, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, walking down, 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 down. It's like, okay, we're gonna go down the ramp here, down the slide, and then we'll come right back up. And all of these melodic shapes, the rise and fall of the pitch, is one of the things that keeps us kind of up and down, moving, enjoying the it's kind of like a roller coaster ride. Although I wouldn't say this feels like a roller coaster ride, but it's that sort of dynamic, constant change, which melodically helps to keep it energized. Because if you were singing mostly in a straight line, or if the guitar didn't go down there, it would have the potential to get a bit dull. Just imagine if this guitar solo didn't take us down the slide. And then the voice, buy me love, again up to the top. So we're up high, down low, up high, down low. And the voice goes up high. It's a perfect balance between high and low. Works really well. It's so funny to me. It's this use of the blues style applied here. Even though they're using the blues notes, the blues chord progression, bending some of the notes a bit, there's something about it that feels, I guess I should say, incredibly un-American. It does not sound like the American blues that I think of when I think of the blues. It's kind of like, trying to listen to a British speaker imitate the Southern accent here in the US. It's hard for them. Something about their accent straightens it or changes it a bit so that it doesn't have that same drawl, the same laziness to it. And this song is so incredibly not lazy. And I'm not using lazy as in a pejorative sense. It's the quality, the feel we get from listening to it. This is so not bluesy feeling, even though it's incredibly bluesy. And it's a fun contrast to have the two of them together. Kind of like listening to an English boys choir, cathedral choir, trying to sing American Negro spirituals or something. It has a unique feel, and I enjoy it. But it certainly doesn't feel like can I say the original? The homegrown place from which it was drawn. It's so interesting to see how styles develop and morph and get to be reapplied musically as they travel around the world. And there we come to a happy finish. Buy me love. Oh, the bending of his notes. He's doing it all, and yet it doesn't sound like what I think of when I think of the blues. Such an interesting, fun mix of styles here. Now I want to go to the piano for a minute because I mentioned the blues scale, but I want to show you what I'm talking about because I didn't really dig into it as we were listening to the piece. So let's go check this out. So I've talked quite a bit about the major scale before. I won't dig into that a whole lot right now. I think probably if you've watched my videos, you know enough about that. 7 notes, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Well, the blues scale, if you play music at all, especially popular music, jazz, blues, rock music, you're probably familiar with it. It's a pretty popular scale to improvise off of. Actually, there are different variants to the blues scale because, of course, blues developed vocally at first, and the voice is very flexible. And so there are notes which, on any instrument, not any instrument, but a keyboard or a fretted instrument like guitar, we give a couple extra notes in the scale so that we can kind of give that bendy, fluid, clashing sound. So instead of, we might end up playing something more like this. And so we have the E flat, and the D. And very often, the E and the E flat are played simultaneously or very in close relationship to each other, very much like if you're bending a guitar string or you're playing a woodwind instrument or a string instrument where the note pitches can be bent, or if you're singing, you can sort of slide and bend. Well, you can't really so much on the piano. You can play two adjacent notes and get kind of the same in-between feel. And why do I say all of that? Because one of the blues features of this song is that we see some of those clashing notes. Of course, it starts out simple E major chord. So interesting that the melody is outlining the C major chord, C, E, G, while underneath, as I said not long ago, we have E minor and then A minor. So the chords underneath are going for the minor chords while the melody is outlining a bright major chord. Interesting, I just noticed that. Well, moving on, back to the blues. Then we move to an E flat. And we even have a B flat in there. That's another one that features in the blues scale sometimes. Maybe something. Another blues version. Again, it's this non-diatonic, not part of the major scale. So we get a bit of the minor tonalities, a bit of these clashing sounds. So when we have something like that, right? And as we're walking down, here we come to the E flat. And while we're playing, or while he's singing the E flat, underneath, we have a major chord being played by the guitar. So the C major with this. That gives us the clash that I was just talking about. And he goes past it quickly. So it's not something that we dwell on and say, oh, that's a really long dissonance. It's more flies past our ears and adds color and dimension to the very simple harmonic outline that the 12-bar blues gives us. And so rather than having chords, chord progressions being what gives us our emotional development in the music, instead it's the coloring of the scales, of the extra notes, not even extra because they belong in the blues scale, but these, I'm going to say, colorful notes that give us the emotive capacity, even though we don't have some luscious chord progression happening underneath. We have these wonderful passing dissonances and clashes. This one as well. Isn't that great? And so one of the features of this song is this E flat, E natural clash. That's one of the things that makes it bluesy. Well, as I said, with my first listen, it is a rather simple song. There's nothing really massively complex that we can pull out of here because it's meant to be simple and quickly accessible to the inexperienced ear. But it's great that way. And even though it's so simple, because of these features like the blues notes being thrown in, the texture of the percussion, the lively, cheery quality of the guitar solo. All of these little details come together to make it not feel cheap. It doesn't feel like we shouldn't enjoy it because it's too simplistic. It's simple, but I wouldn't call it simplistic. It works incredibly well for what it was made to do. I enjoyed it, and well, we'll see what number 26 is coming up soon.